Her name was Claire Marlowe, and at 9:18 at night, she was removed from her own sister's wedding weekend by her own family through a message so polite it felt cold enough to cut. At that moment, Claire was standing in her small kitchen in Portland, her hands still covered in soap bubbles, hot water running over white plates with chipped edges. Her phone vibrated on the wooden table. The screen glowed blue in the soft yellow room, showing the name of the group chat, Marlowe Family. Her father, Russell, wrote that for everyone's peace, it would be best if Claire did not appear during the wedding weekend. Lily needed support, not more tension. Claire read that sentence again and again, not more tension. No one named the real tension. No one mentioned the wedding venue deposit she had already paid. No one mentioned the flower invoice that would be automatically charged the next morning. No one mentioned the lake house called Willowbend, where Lily wanted to hold the family celebration like a fairy tale, while every light bulb, every plank of flooring, and every insurance payment was being quietly kept from collapsing by Claire. Then another message appeared. Patricia Brooks, the mother of Owen, Claire's fiancé, wrote that it was a mature decision. A wise woman should know when to step back to preserve family harmony. Claire looked at those words, her lips curving slightly, but not because she was smiling. Patricia always spoke in the voice of someone who believed she understood life. She had never paid a single bill for the Marlowe family, yet she was very good at teaching Claire how to sacrifice for them. In Patricia's eyes, silence was grace, endurance was virtue, and a good daughter-in-law never made the men in the family lose face. Across the city, Russell put his phone down on the dining table and let out a relieved breath. He thought it was over. Diane, his wife, sat beside him, twisting a tissue in her hands, feeling sorry for Lily while fearing Claire's reaction. Lily was standing in front of the mirror, trying on her wedding dress. Her eyes red, but inside she was secretly pleased. She believed her older sister had finally been put in her place. No one in that house understood what Claire was holding. Claire dried her hands very slowly. She did not cry. Some wounds come too many times to bleed right away anymore. They simply turn cold. She opened her computer. The screen showed a folder named Willowbend Estate Payments. That folder name had once made her feel useful. Now it looked like a chain polished with the word family. Inside were spreadsheets, receipts, and bank transfers. Home insurance, repairs for the porch roof, legal fees, electricity, water, the wedding deposit. The numbers sat there quietly, neatly, obediently, as if they did not represent years of Claire cutting pieces out of her own life to fill the empty spaces of other people. The phone vibrated again. Lily texted that Claire should not make everything more awkward. Diane texted that the whole family only wanted one peaceful weekend. Patricia privately texted that sometimes love meant knowing how to give way. Claire looked at those 3 messages, 3 different voices, the same hand pushing her toward the door, and then she typed one single sentence into the family group chat. I understand. I will step back from Willowbend too. She pressed send. For the first 5 minutes, no one replied. That silence was beautiful. Very brief, very false. Then the first call came from Russell, then the second call, then Diane, then Lily. Then even Patricia, the woman who only a few minutes earlier had advised Claire to behave maturely. Claire let the phone vibrate on the table. The sound was small, dry, and urgent, like fingernails scraping against a locked door. Owen called last. He did not blame her. He only asked in a low voice what had just happened. Claire looked out the window. The city outside was still bright. Cars were still moving. People were still living as if nothing had changed, while one family had just discovered that the wallet they thought had no bottom actually had an owner. She said very softly that they wanted her to disappear from this weekend. Owen was silent. Claire continued, but they still wanted me to pay for it. On the other end of the line, Owen understood more slowly than Claire had hoped, but faster than everyone else. He knew Claire had endured a lot. He had simply never seen the entire basement beneath the house called family. Claire closed the document on the screen, then opened another file. No one in the family knew she had this file. It was not just a record of expenses, it was a map of a truth buried beneath the beautiful paint of tradition, blood ties, and family history. The file was named Willowbend Ledger. That night, For the first time in years, Claire did not feel abandoned. She felt the right to stand up being returned to her. 4 years earlier, Claire Marlowe did not walk into the Willowbend trap out of greed. She walked into it wearing a black dress, mud-soaked shoes, and a heart still soft after her grandmother's funeral. That day, Bend was so cold that breath clung white against the windows. The Willowbend house sat still beside the lake, its dark wooden roof covered in a thin layer of mist, as if the house itself was mourning Eleanor Whitcomb. Inside, the smell of cold coffee, scented candles, and damp coats blended together. People spoke softly. People held one another. People cried just enough to look heartbroken. Claire stood at the far end of the living room, staring at Eleanor's empty armchair. In the past, her grandmother often sat there, one hand holding a cup of tea, the other stroking her old gray cat, her eyes sharp enough to see through lies wrapped in smiles. Diane cried first. Not the kind of crying that broke open. It was the kind of crying that made other people wonder if they were heartless for not rushing over to comfort her. She held a stack of papers in her hands and said the property taxes were overdue, the legal fees were rising, and the house insurance was about to expire. If they did not pay soon, Willowbend could be fined, and might even fall into a dispute. Russell stood beside his wife, his face tired, his shoulders slumped, like a man wronged by fate. But Claire knew her father. Every time he looked exhausted, it meant he was about to place a burden on someone else's shoulders. He looked at Claire with a gentleness that was almost frightening. "Claire, you are the best one in this family with paperwork. Just this once. We cannot let your grandmother's house disappear like this." Lily was standing near the window then, her eyes red, her hands holding a framed photo of Eleanor. She said nothing. She only looked at her older sister with wet eyes, that silent weapon the whole family had protected since she was little. Claire was only 27. She was saving to buy her first apartment. That money was not a fortune to wealthy people. What to her, it was years of eating cold sandwiches for lunch, working on weekends, turning down vacations, and telling herself that if she just kept going a little longer, she would finally have a place that truly belonged to her. That night, she opened her laptop on the kitchen table at Willowbend. The wood felt cold beneath her wrists. Outside the window, the lake was black and motionless. She transferred $21,400 to the law office and the tax authority. When the transaction went through, Diane held her for a very long time. Russell patted her shoulder and said the family would never forget this. Lily whispered that Claire was the only one who could save everything. They were all wrong. They forgot very quickly. After the first payment came the second, then the third. A burst pipe in the middle of winter, a rotting porch roof, an unusually high electricity bill, a new insurance fee, a legal inspection fee, the cost of cleaning out the storage room. Every expense was called temporary. Every time Claire asked when everyone else would contribute, the answer drifted away like smoke. Diane said they should wait until the inheritance paperwork was settled. Russell said he was short on money. Lily said she still had to save for her future. Aunt Marlene always appeared at the right moment to speak about family history. She said Willowbend was not just a house, it was the place where Marlowe tradition was preserved. It was blood, memory, and roots. She spoke in a sacred voice, but she never once opened her wallet. From then on, Claire became the person holding the keys, but without the right to enter like an owner. She paid for the house to stay standing, but every decision still had to go through the entire family. When she suggested limiting the expenses, they said she was cold. When she asked for clear paperwork, they said she was damaging family bonds. When she was tired, they said everyone was grieving. Patricia Brooks began inserting herself around that time. She was not part of the Marlowe family, but she spoke like a moral judge. She told Claire that a grown woman should not count every dollar with family. She told her marriage needed a wife who knew how to be soft. Claire listened, then swallowed the answers that felt sharp as glass. Owen once asked her on a rainy evening whether they were her family, or invoices with last names. Claire laughed. But when she sat alone in her car, she cried until the windshield blurred, until she could no longer tell what was rainwater and what was tears. Then Lily announced that she wanted to hold her wedding celebration at Willowbend. She said Eleanor would have wanted that. She called it healing for the whole family. But the bills sent to Claire did not look like healing. Expensive decorations, imported table linens, a photography deposit, new outdoor chairs, luxury bedding for guests staying over. Claire began saving everything, not because she wanted war, but because a very small, very awake part of her had started to understand that love should not require that many receipts. Late one night, while sorting through old emails from Eleanor's law office, Claire saw a subject line buried deep inside her father's forwarded inbox. Whitcomb inheritance file, revised beneficiary packet. That email had been sent to Russell 3 years earlier. Claire had never heard a single word about it. She sat frozen in front of the screen. In the quiet room, her heartbeat was as clear as knocking at a door. For the first time, Claire no longer thought of Willowbend as only a burden. She began to suspect that it had once been hers. That evening, Claire Marlowe did not close her laptop after seeing the hidden email. She sat still in the dark room, both hands resting on the table as if one small movement might make the truth disappear. Outside the window, Portland was quiet under the rain. Thin trails of water stretched down the glass like tiny cracks. On the screen, the words about the revised inheritance file still sat there, cold and unmistakably clear. 3 years. Her father had kept that email for 3 years. 3 years during which Claire had paid for Willowbend like someone in debt, while she might have been the very person Eleanor had chosen all along. Claire did not call Russell. She did not call Diane. She did not call Lily. People who had learned to turn tears into answers would never bring the truth forward unless they were forced into a corner. She opened the Willowbend ledger folder. One file after another appeared. Roof repair invoices, insurance receipts, legal fees, the wedding venue deposit, chair rentals, flowers, electricity and water bills, expenses hidden under the name of family, but in truth, every one of them had flowed out of her account. Claire logged into the payment system. Her fingers were cold, but they did not shake. The transfer for Lily's wedding venue was scheduled for the next morning. She canceled it. The flower payment. Canceled. The Willowbend insurance payment. Paused. The cleaning service fee for the wedding weekend. Canceled. Each click echoed in her mind like the sound of a lock snapping open around her wrist. At the Marlowe house, Russell was sitting and checking bank messages on his phone. When the first notification appeared, his face changed. Diane looked at him and understood immediately that something was wrong. Lily had just come down the stairs, her hair still pinned in loose wedding curls, her mouth already opening to ask about the guest list. No one had time to say anything before the second notification arrived, then the third. Russell called Claire. She watched the screen light up, then turned the phone face down. Diane called. Lily called. Patricia called. Aunt Marlene texted that Claire was acting childish. Lily texted that her sister had no right to ruin the most beautiful day of her life. Russell texted that everything could still be fixed if Claire turned the payments back on before morning. Claire did not answer. She took screenshots of every message, not to torture herself, but to remember the exact voices of the people who only remembered her when the bills stopped being paid. The next morning, Claire called Eleanor's old law office. A woman named Monica Hale answered. Monica's voice was polite, but when Claire read the file code from the old email, the other end of the line went silent for a very long time. Monica asked if Claire was somewhere private. That question told Claire she had been right. The real file arrived that afternoon. Claire opened each page slowly. Eleanor had left Willowbend to her, not to Russell, not to Diane, not to the entire Marlowe family, to Claire, along with a trust of $96,000 to maintain the house during the first few years. But behind that was the page that turned her blood cold, a refusal of inheritance form. It had Claire Marlowe's name on it. It had a signature that looked like hers. There was only one problem. She had never signed it. Claire stared at that signature for a long time. It was not just a lie. It was a familiar hand crossing the final line. They had not only taken her money, they had tried to take away her very existence inside her grandmother's will. That evening, a family meeting invitation appeared in her inbox. The subject was about talking so everyone could understand one another. Claire joined on time. The screen divided into small boxes. Russell sat with his back straight, like an offended father. Diane wiped her eyes even though no one had said anything yet. Lily was red with anger. Aunt Marlene wore a pearl necklace. Her face tightened with that familiar look of moral judgment. Patricia was there too, sitting beside Owen, her lips pressed together as if she were preparing to teach Claire how to be a proper woman. Russell spoke first. He said Claire had gone too far. Diane said the family should not turn grief into war. Lily said that if the wedding was ruined, she would never forgive her. Patricia said softly that a future wife needed to know how to lower her ego. Claire listened to all of it. Then she spoke very quietly. "It is my turn." She shared her screen. The first file that appeared was the Willowbend ledger. The total amount she had paid over 4 years was clearly shown at the top of the page, $68,000. The air inside the call instantly thickened. Lily stopped blinking. Diane lifted a hand to cover her mouth. Russell looked away as if the number itself had offended him. Claire scrolled through each line. The roof, taxes, insurance, lawyers, the wedding, outdoor chairs, luxury bedding. Every line was another moment when they had called her difficult for asking why. Aunt Marlene forced a laugh. She said people inside a family did not keep receipts like that. Claire looked straight into the camera. Yes, they do. The person being drained has to. She opened the second file, the real inheritance file of Eleanor Whitcomb. No one spoke anymore. She opened the third file, the refusal of inheritance form with the forged signature. Russell shot up from his chair. Diane turned white. Lily looked at her father, then at her mother, and for the first time the victim look on her face was gone, replaced by fear. Patricia went silent too. She was used to judging Claire's emotions, but paperwork did not know how to feel ashamed on anyone's behalf. Russell said they had only wanted to protect the house for the family. Claire answered immediately, "No, you wanted to protect your access to it." Diane burst into tears and said Claire was tearing the family apart. Claire shook her head. A family does not need a forged signature to survive. Owen looked at his mother, then at Claire. This time, he did not stay silent. He said Claire was the only person in that call who was telling the truth. Claire announced that the lawyer had received the documents, the bank had been warned, the probate office had been contacted, the loan under the name Marlowe Legacy Retreats had been frozen before anyone could use Willowbend as a cover. Lily screamed that Claire had destroyed her wedding. Claire looked at her sister, her heart aching, but no longer soft. "No, Lily. I only stopped paying for the lie." Then she left the call. The screen went dark. In the reflection of the black screen, Claire saw her own face, not victorious, not pleased. Just a woman who had been underestimated for too long, finally remembering that the real key had been in her hands all along. 3 days after the Zoom call, Claire Marlowe's apartment was so quiet that she could hear the old heater hissing softly inside the wall. But her phone was not quiet. Russell texted first. At first, he was angry. He said she was destroying the entire family over a misunderstanding that could have been handled in silence. By afternoon, his tone had changed. He begged her to call back before the lawyer made everything serious. By evening, he wrote that Willowbend was not worth a daughter turning her back on her parents. Claire read that message while standing by the sink, holding a white ceramic cup in her hand. She did not feel angry. She only felt tired. A kind of tiredness buried deep in her bones, the exhaustion of someone who had been pulled for too long by hands that called it love. Diane sent a photo of Lily sitting on the bedroom floor. Her wedding dress spread around her like a discarded cloud. Lily's eyes were swollen red. The message underneath was short and sharp. "Look at your sister. Is this what you wanted?" Claire stared at the photo for a long time. Part of her still hurt. Not because she regretted anything, because she had once loved Lily with the instinct of an older sister. She had once tied Lily's shoes, stayed awake all night when Lily had a fever, and shielded her from Russell's anger. But loving someone did not mean letting them turn you into the floor beneath every dream they wanted to walk across. Aunt Marlene left a long voicemail. She said Claire had ruined the family history. She said Eleanor would be disappointed if she knew the Willowbend house had become the reason blood ties were being torn apart. She emphasized the words blood ties, as if they could erase a forged signature, hidden documents, and 4 years of money being drained away. Patricia Brooks sent a private message the next morning. She wrote that marriage could not begin with bitterness. She said that if Claire did not learn how to forgive, she would lose Owen. This time, Claire did not tremble. She simply forwarded the message to Owen. Owen called back a few minutes later. His voice was low, clear, and sad. He said he had spoken to his mother. From now on, Patricia was not allowed to interfere in Claire's affairs anymore. If she continued, she would not be invited to their wedding. Claire sat down on the edge of the bed. That sentence was not loud, but it made her chest feel lighter. For the first time, someone did not tell her to calm down so she would be easier to control. Someone stood beside her without asking her to become smaller. That afternoon, the lawyer called. His voice was calm like a windless lake. The revised will was valid. Willowbend belonged to Claire. Part of the $96,000 trust was still there, but the money Claire had paid out of her own pocket over 4 years would need to be reviewed separately. The refusal of inheritance form showed signs of being forged and would be passed to the appropriate investigative authority. Claire did not cheer. She did not laugh. She only closed her eyes. She was not happy because they had been exposed. She was hurt because the truth had finally confirmed what she had feared for so long. Her family had not only underestimated her, they had bet that she would be too obedient to save herself. That night, an unknown number called. Claire almost did not answer, but instinct made her pick up. On the other end was Grant Whitcomb, Eleanor's younger brother, the man the Marlowes had always called cold and selfish. His voice was rough, slow, but warm. Your grandmother left Willowbend to you because you were the only one who loved that house without calculating what you could take from it. Claire could not say anything. Grant told her that many years earlier, Russell had tried to pressure Eleanor into mortgaging Willowbend to cover a business debt. Eleanor refused. After that, she quietly changed the will. She knew they would call greed tradition. She knew they would use tears to hide the truth. When the call ended, Claire cried. Not the kind of crying that came from defeat. It was the kind of crying that came from someone finally finding the missing piece in the story of her own life. 1 year later, Willowbend still stood beside the lake. Claire changed the locks, replaced the gate code, repaired the wooden porch, and planted lavender along the path. Every morning there, mist lay softly over the water, and the house no longer felt like a debt. It felt like a late apology Eleanor had left behind for her. Lily still got married, in a smaller hotel. Claire did not attend. Diane sent an email on Thanksgiving, writing that family still meant something. Claire read it, then closed it. She did not reply, because in the end, she understood that boundaries were not hatred. Boundaries were a door that only opened for people who knew how to enter without carrying a knife. And if this story reminded you of a wound inside your own family, leave a comment below. Have you ever had to choose peace instead of blood ties? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your story, because someone out there may need to know they are not alone.